The people of Uka land used to say that a person's name follows them in life. If your name carried blessing, you would be a blessing to others. If your name carried trouble, people expected trouble. That was why they always said Mrs Ngozi's name suited her perfectly. Her name meant blessing, and everyone believed she was truly a blessing to their lives. She was beautiful, tall, educated, and successful. People admired her whenever she passed by, whether in the city where she lived or in her village, Uka land, where she came from. She had many businesses in the city. Her shops were busy, her workers were loyal, and her house was one of the most beautiful in her area. Yet, even with all her success, she never forgot her village people. That was one reason everyone praised her. Every weekend, without fail, she would drive down from the city to her village. The journey was not too long, just a few kilometers, but they meant so much to the people of Uka land. They waited eagerly for her return each Saturday. Children would rush to the roadside, shouting, "Auntie Ngozi is back! She has come again!" Mothers would clean their homes quickly, hoping she might stop by. Fathers would smile quietly, telling themselves that their families would not go hungry that weekend because the great Ngozi had returned. Whenever she came, her car was always filled with items from the city: bags of rice, cartons of noodles, tins of milk, loaves of bread, bottles of drink, clothes, shoes, and even baby items. She never went back to the city with those things. Before the weekend was over, she had shared everything among the people. By the time she was driving back on Sunday evening, her car was empty and the villagers were full of joy. Her generosity became a story of its own. People in the neighboring villages heard about her. Some even wished they were from Uka land, so they too could enjoy the gifts she always brought. To the villagers, she was a gift from God, someone who gave freely and asked for nothing in return. On one particular weekend, her visit was met with even more excitement. One of the women in the village, Mrs Chioma, had just given birth to a baby girl. The baby was healthy and beautiful, and everyone celebrated with her. When Mrs Ngozi arrived, she went to see the new mother. She smiled warmly, carried the baby gently, and gave Chioma a bag full of baby clothes she had bought from the city. "These are for your little angel," she said softly. "May she grow in strength and wisdom. May she bring joy to your family." Chioma was so happy that tears filled her eyes. She thanked Mrs Ngozi again and again, praying for her long life and greater blessings. She told people that no one else in the village could think of giving such beautiful clothes. The baby looked like a princess when she wore them, and she believed that her child was lucky to have been born when such a woman as Ngozi lived. That same day, other villagers came around. Some received food items, some clothes, and some even shoes. Nobody left her house empty-handed. The laughter in the village was plenty that weekend. Mothers prepared jollof rice with the rice and oil she brought. Children chewed bread happily, and even the old people sipped tea and milk. They all said the same thing: "Our daughter is a true blessing." But with time, a certain request kept coming up. Some villagers began to beg her to take their children with her to the city. They reasoned that since she was wealthy and had businesses, she could take one or two of the children to help her at home or in her shops. In exchange, she could put them in good schools in the city. That way, the children would grow to have a better life, just like she did. A man once said, "Ngozi, you know our village schools are not good. If you take even one child from my house, I will be grateful forever." Another woman said, "Please, just take my daughter. She can sweep your house, wash plates, and still go to school. She is hardworking. She will not be a burden to you." But each time, Mrs Ngozi only smiled and shook her head. She would say, "Not now. Let the child grow a little. I will help in other ways." Then she would give the family food or clothes to comfort them. At first, people accepted this answer. They told themselves that maybe she was not ready yet. But as the years went by, and as she continued to refuse, some began to wonder why. They whispered among themselves, "Why will she not take even one child to the city?" A villager asked one evening. "Maybe she has her reasons. Maybe she had a bad experience before. Who knows? Or maybe she simply does not want anyone to grow up and become as successful as she is," a jealous voice said quietly. But no matter the whispers, when Ngozi returned each weekend, the villagers still ran to her house. They still smiled when she shared food. They still wore the clothes she brought. They still called her a blessing. That was how life continued in Ukaland week after week. People lived in hope of the next Saturday, when the woman of the city would return with her car full of gifts. They depended on her more than they depended on their own farms. To them, she was more than a person. She was like a living promise. And so while the whiskers continued in secret, the praises were louder. She was still the envy of other women, the dream of every child, and the pride of Ukaland. But as the elders often say, not everything that shines is gold. The villagers had no idea that the very gifts they loved so much carried secrets that would one day shake their land and open their eyes forever. The sun rose beautifully that Saturday morning in Ukaland, and the villagers were already waiting eagerly. Children ran up and down the dusty roads, looking out for the familiar car that brought joy. Women sat under the shade of mango trees, gossiping happily about what they might receive that day. Men pretended to be busy with their farms, but their ears were alert, waiting for the sound of Ngozi's car horn. When she finally drove in, the whole village seemed to come alive. Dust rose as her car entered, and children screamed, "She is here! She is here!" Women left their cooking pots, men left their palm wine calabashes, and soon her compound was filled with people. As usual, she came with plenty. Bags of rice, cartons of drinks, bread, milk, clothes, slippers, and even soup. Her workers carried the things into her compound, and villagers queued quietly, waiting for her to share. She smiled, she laughed, she hugged people, and she gave them all something to take home. It was her routine, and the people loved it. But on that day, something different happened. A widow named Uju walked forward slowly. Her head was tied with a dull wrapper. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Just a few months ago, she had buried her husband, a poor farmer who died suddenly, leaving her with 3 small children. Life had been very hard for her since then. She knelt before Mrs Ngozi and held her wrapper. "Please help me," she said in a shaky voice. "You know I lost my husband, and I have nothing. My children are still small. I cannot take care of them alone. My husband left nothing for me. Please take my eldest son with you to the city. He is just 11 years old. He can fetch water for you, run errands, and help in your house. In return, I beg you to put him in school. Let him get the chance to live a better life. Please, ma." Everyone became silent. The widow's voice touched their hearts. They all looked at Ngozi, expecting her to agree this time. But Ngozi only smiled her usual smile and touched the widow's shoulder gently. "Do not worry," she said. "I will help your son, but let him grow a little first. For now, take this food and these clothes. They will help you and the children." She handed Uju a bag of rice and a few other items. Uju forced a smile and accepted them, but deep inside her heart, she was disappointed. She had hoped for a lasting solution, not just food that would finish in a week. She wanted her son to have a chance in the city. Still, she bowed and left, murmuring thanks. She had no choice. That evening, other villagers came as usual. Some received food, some clothes, and everyone went home with something. Among those who came were Ada and her school friends. Ada was a university student, and she had come home to spend the weekend with her mother. When they heard Ngozi was back, she and her friends decided to go and collect their share. As they walked towards Ngozi's compound, Ada's friend Nena suddenly stopped. She refused to enter. "Ada, I cannot step into that house," she whispered. Ada frowned. "Why not? You will miss good things. Look at all the people going in. Let's go." But Nena shook her head firmly. "No, my spirit does not allow me. I cannot go inside." Ada was surprised, but since her friend was stubborn, she entered alone. She collected food items, rice, noodles, and bread from Mrs Ngozi and came out smiling. "See what I got," she told Nena. "You should have entered." But Nena only looked at the things and sighed. "Let's go." When they reached Ada's home, Ada's mother was happy. She clapped her hands and said, "Ngozi is truly a blessing. Look at all these things. God will bless her more."
She quickly started preparing jollof rice with the rice and tomatoes from Ngozi's gifts. But Nena did not smile. She sat quietly, watching. When the food was ready, she stood up and said firmly, "Do not eat this food." Ada and her mother turned to look at her in shock. "What are you saying? We cooked this food ourselves," Ada's mother said. "Yes, we cooked it, but my instinct tells me not to eat it. Ada, you know my instinct never lies. I am very hungry, but I will not eat this food." Ada was confused. "But this is rice, good rice. Look at the meat, look at the smell. Why should we waste it?" "Because something is wrong," Nena said seriously. "I cannot explain it fully, but I feel danger. Please, let us throw it away." They argued for a long time. Ada wanted to eat. Her mother also wanted to eat. But Nena begged them, saying again and again, "Do not eat it. Please, trust me." At last, Ada and her mother agreed. They carried the steaming pot of sweet-smelling jollof rice and poured everything into the pit toilet behind the house. It was painful to see such food wasted, but they decided to trust Nena. Later, they went to their farm, dug up cocoyam and boiled it. They ate it with palm oil. Though it was plain, they ate it with peace of mind. Afterwards, they went to sleep. Early the next morning, something strange happened. A knock was on their door. When they opened it, it was Mrs Ngozi herself, standing there with her tall figure and beautiful wrapper. She smiled faintly, but her eyes looked sharp. "Mama Ada," she said, "why did you not eat the food you cooked yesterday?" Ada's mother froze. "What do you mean?" she stammered. Ngozi's voice grew louder. "I said, why did you throw away the food you cooked? Do not pretend with me." Ada and Nena came out quickly, shocked by her words. Ada's mother tried to defend herself. "We did not throw any food away," she said weakly. But Ngozi shouted, "Do not lie to me. I know you threw it away. Do not ever try such a thing again." Ada's mother trembled. She respected Ngozi too much to talk back, but she could not understand. "How did you know?" she asked quietly. "Your house is not close to mine. You were not here when we threw it away. Nobody was here except me, Ada, and Nena. So how did you find out?" Ngozi frowned, trying to wave off the question. "It does not matter how I know," she said sharply. But Nena stepped forward. She whispered to Ada's mother, "Do not let her go until she explains what is going on." By this time, villagers had started gathering. People heard Ngozi's loud voice and they rushed to see what was happening. Soon, Mama Ada's compound was filled with curious faces. It was rare to see Ngozi angry. People were surprised and they wanted to know why. As the crowd grew, whispers began to spread. Something strange was happening. Why was Ngozi so angry about wasted food? How did she know the food was thrown away when she was not there? Questions filled the air and unease began to rise. That was how trouble began in Uka land. The gifts that once brought joy had now brought suspicion. The story of Mrs Ngozi and her gifts was about to change forever.
By the next morning, news had spread all over Uka land. Everyone was talking about what happened at Mama Ada's compound. How did Mrs Ngozi know that the food was thrown away? Why was she so angry about it? People who once praised her without question now began to look at her differently. The whispers grew louder. People started to recall their own experiences. Some things that had not made sense before began to connect in their minds. The first to speak was Chioma, the woman who had received the baby clothes. She stood in front of her neighbors and said, "You all remember when I gave birth to my baby girl. Ngozi gave me beautiful clothes for my child. But since then, anytime I dressed my baby in those clothes, she would cry all night. She would cry until fever caught her, and sometimes I would have to rush her to the hospital. But whenever she wore other clothes, she slept peacefully. At first, I thought it was just bad luck, but now I am beginning to wonder." The villagers gasped. People turned to look at Chioma in shock. Then another woman spoke. "Her foodstuffs are good, yes, but after eating them, it becomes difficult for us to buy such food again.
It is as if the taste will not leave our mouths until she returns with more. We end up eating only small yam or cocoyam from our farms until the next weekend when she brings food again. It is like we are tied to her gifts. One after another, voices rose. Men and women began to confess things they had kept quiet about for years. I remember when she gave me a pair of shoes, a young man said. They were fine shoes, but the day I wore them to a job interview, I failed badly. The next time, I went without those shoes and I passed. My daughter wore a dress she gave us, another woman said, and that very day, she fell sick. I thought it was malaria, but now I am not so sure. The people began to murmur among themselves. A new fear was spreading. Could it be that the gifts they loved so much were not really blessings but traps? The king of Wuka land, Igwe Okafor, soon heard about the matter. He was a wise man, respected in all the surrounding villages. He summoned the chiefs, the elders, and the villagers to his palace. The whole village gathered because everyone wanted to know the truth. Mrs Ngozi was also summoned. When she received the message, she did not smile like before. For the first time, fear showed on her face. Still, she dressed in her finest lace, tied her head with a shining wrapper, and came to the palace. The crowd was already waiting when she arrived. People looked at her with new eyes. She was still beautiful, still rich, but now she looked dangerous. Mothers held their children close, men folded their arms, and whispers filled the air. The king stood and lifted the ofo, the sacred staff of justice in Igbo land. It was carved from strong wood with ancient marks on it. Only true kings could hold it, and it was said that no one could lie in its presence. The ofo was feared because it carried truth and punishment together. When Ngozi saw the ofo, her face changed. The confidence she always carried seemed to melt away. Her legs shook and her voice trembled as she said, "Please, Igwe, I do not want to die." The villagers gasped. They had never seen her beg like that. "Speak the truth," the king said firmly, raising the ofo. "What is in these gifts you give to your people?" Tears rolled down her face as she fell on her knees. "I control their destinies with the food, drinks, and clothes I give them," she confessed. "When they eat or wear my gifts, they tie their future to me. None of them will ever rise above me. They will always wait for me. Their children will wait too. As long as they depend on me, my fortune will continue to grow, and they will continue to worship me." The crowd screamed in shock. Some people covered their mouths, some fell to the ground, mothers wept loudly. Ngozi continued, her voice shaking. "That is why I become an enemy to anyone who rejects my gifts. I watch them through a secret mirror in my room. That was how I knew Mama Ada threw the food away." The king's face grew dark. "So, all this while we were eating and wearing our destinies?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. "It is true." The people cried out in anger. "We are finished. We are cursed. She has used us all." But not everyone was crying. Some families lifted their heads proudly. One of them was Mr. Obi. He stood and raised his voice. "The first time she sent gifts to my house, I told my wife to return them. She became angry, and since then she does not greet us again. But today, I am glad we never accepted anything from her. We have suffered, yes, but our destiny is still in our own hands." Others nodded and shared their stories. They too had refused her gifts at one point or another, and now they were thankful. The king looked at Ngozi with disappointment. "You used your wealth to entrap your people instead of lifting them. You chose to keep them small so you could remain great. That is wickedness." The crowd shouted, "Yes, wickedness." But when they turned to look for her again, they were shocked. Ngozi was gone. Nobody saw her leave the palace. Nobody saw her walk past the gates. It was as if she vanished into the air. That was the last time anyone ever saw Mrs. Ngozi in Wuka land. She never returned to the village, never sent any gifts again. Some people said she ran away to another city. Others said the earth swallowed her because of her evil deeds. Nobody knew the truth. The villagers were left with fear and regret. They had eaten her food, worn her clothes, and used her gifts for years. Now they wondered how much of their lives had been tied down. They learned the hard way that not all gifts are blessings. The elders gathered and gave one final warning to the people. Be careful of the gifts you accept. Not all gifts are given with love. Some gifts are chains that bind you. Some gifts are curses in disguise. And from that day, the people of Wuka land became more cautious. They no longer rushed blindly to collect free things. They remembered the lesson of Mrs. Ngozi, the woman who was called a blessing, but whose gifts brought curses. The story of her life became a warning to generations. Not all that glitters is gold, and not every gift is truly a gift.